Welcome on into the Wolverine TV. Clayton Sayfie here with Chris Balas. We're brought to you by Lewis Jewelers, our great partners, our great sponsor. Also use the promo code BLUE60 at thewolverine.com to join us on our premium message board and get all of our insider content. 60 days absolutely free, so BLUE60 is the promo code there. Chris, a couple commitments this week, so we'll get into those. One on the football side, a transfer, Daylen Baldwin. Then we'll get into the hoop side. 2022 four-star point guard Dug McDaniel is the first commit for Juwan Howard in the 2022 class. And then we'll start, though, with a little bit of hoops and four guys that are going to be at the G League Elite Camp. They're actually there as we speak, kicking things off there. Hunter Dickinson, DeVante Jones, Coastal Carolina point guard transfer coming in here, Chaundee Brown and Mike Smith. But the two really most noteworthy on our side of things, we wish the other guys great luck, but in good success. But the guys, DeVante Jones and Hunter Dickinson, who are probably still going to be back here, but at the same time, there was a discussion about this, them even going to this on our message board, and I said it's a win-win-win. I mean, they get to compete with other guys, they get to, build those relationships with some of those NBA franchises and the G League as well. You never know what the route is gonna, where it's gonna take you. So there's just all positives, and you get to compete against these guys. So, we wish them, the best here this weekend. It's going to be tough, I think, to rise from that bottom 40 and receive an invite to the Combine. I think 2 years ago when they had this, I believe there were 9 invites sent out of the 40. So, but there's some good names in there too. So it's going to be tough, but it'll be good competition to kind of see where they stand.
It wouldn't surprise me at all, honestly, if Hunter Dickinson, dominated at times and maybe got that invite, and then what happens, who knows? But, we said many times it wouldn't surprise us at all if he went to the Combine and if he declared. In fact, we expected him to declare and to get some feedback, and that's exactly what he's doing. But it would heavily surprised if he were to stay in the NBA draft. He's going to be back for another year. He's down to 250 pounds right now. He's moving a lot better. Teams want to see that he can move laterally and that he can defend. And that is something that you're going to have to do in the NBA, and to be able to shoot the ball. And, he's been working on that. I've seen videos of him out there stroking some threes, and I'm thinking, geez, don't get too good, man. Not really. You want these guys to have success, obviously, and that is the ultimate goal. But, man, selfishly, you want to see these guys back in the base of blue for one more year. So DeVante Jones, same thing. Everybody's like, well, he's got 2 years of eligibility. He's not going to be here for 2 years, in my opinion. I think he will probably be gone after this year. But at the same time, you want these guys to show well, because this is their dream, and that's why they come here. They come here to be coached up. They come here to get ready for the next level, and that's what Juwan Howard is preaching to them. Hey, I'm going to help you get there. And in fact, Hunter Dickinson, when he committed to Juwan Howard, he says, I'm committing to Michigan. He goes, I'm going to get to the NBA, and you're going to help me get there. And so that's exactly the goal. So, but I'm excited to watch these guys tomorrow. I'll be covering these guys, and we'll be doing interviews with all of these guys. So stay tuned at thewolverine.com, and hope that they play well, just not perfect.
That's hilarious. And there's probably some people out there hoping they don't play that well, but it is what it is.
You're right.
Yeah, and actually, I said it was going to be tough, and it'll be tough for them to kind of, again, there's some guys, EJ Liddell, the guy pictured there for the YouTube viewers, is there, and a lot of really good college players. But at the same time, like you said, Hunter Dickinson, he kind of dominated at times in college, and if he's only improved and improving, then he's going to have a shot. And DeVante Jones, I think, has more of an uphill climb, but it'll be good for him to test himself against some better competition before he comes into the Big Ten too, because Coastal Carolina is one thing, and it's higher up than the Ivy League, so. When you're trying to project and you look at Mike Smith's path, it's a little bit easier to maybe say that he could step in and be ready. I think he's going to be, but you just never know until these guys get here. So, getting that experience, I think, is big for DeVante Jones too. And which, speaking of point guards, that leads us right into our commitment. 2022 four-star point guard Dug McDaniel commits to Michigan this week, Thursday night. On his visit, it kind of got out right before midnight. I had just hopped in bed, checked my phone, commit, got out of bed, started, doing some things for the site here.
Yep.
and you were obviously up as well, and we were providing some coverage there, hopping on the
which
message
was
board.
which was a miracle, I will
Yeah,
add.
I sent the text, and I didn't know what we were gonna get. I
Yep.
thought I might have to write the story, but
Right.
which would have been fine. But no, yeah, we had full coverage there that night, and then obviously we talked to an analyst, a couple analysts it looked like, and then I got up with his AAU coach yesterday, so check those stories out at thewolverine.com if you've missed them though. But 5'10", maybe a little bit shorter than that. There's some debate there. It'll be good for us to see him in person at some point this summer, because this is a guy who I think is going to be here for 4 years. So we're going to see a lot of Dug McDaniel, shorter but quick and fast. A really good passer, a really good ball handler, a really good defender, an athlete actually for his size. This isn't an undersized kid who's not a good athlete. He can move. He is getting stronger, and I think it's a good take for Michigan. They had a couple guys, obviously, that are ranked a little bit higher on the board, but Juwan Howard went with a guy from a proven league over in the Washington, D.C. area, the same high school league that produced Hunter Dickinson and Terence Williams, the same AAU program that produced those two guys. So he's got some of that pedigree in him. I think it's a good take. The guy was the one out of the 3 point guards that visited that was running through the doors to play for Michigan. I think that means something too.
Yeah, without a doubt. And watching his film, how fast he is. He's going to be the fastest point guard they've had in a while. Xavier Simpson could get end to end very quickly, but this kid has another gear. And for the old timers, my dad will love this. Ricky Green, back in the 70s, man, end to end, boom. Speaking with the analysts and having seen his film, he is probably the fastest, quickest point guard available in this class. He's only number 75. And the reason for that is because he's closer to 5'9", But the thing is that Juwan Howard wants to get playing up and down game, right? And in transition, this kid makes all the right moves. This kid is unbelievably quick. He's got a purpose when he gets into the lane, and he can get into the lane. His finishing ability around the rim, you got to get that loft on there. Somebody said, okay, he's going to start developing his little hook shot. Let's hope not. That was that was a Xavier Simpson thing, but he's got that floater too that Xavier Simpson never developed. And his shot is improving. I guess he was 41% last year, somebody said. Now, others said that, okay, he was closer to 36%. And it was a small sample size, but he's improving on his jumper. And in reading that article that you wrote, which I thought was fantastic, his coach said he was not a willing shooter a couple of years ago. And he said, man, when people go below the screens, you're going to have to shoot that ball. And he's learned how to do that. He's got the lower release. As our M Hoops 1 said, though, Cassius Winston had that low release too. He did okay. I'm not saying he's the next Cassius Winston. He's nothing like Cassius Winston in any way, shape, or form other than the low release on his jump shot. But this kid has got it. When you look at him in some of his films, he was playing one of the top point guards in the country. And even before the game, he was getting right in his grill. He had a couple of problems defending him, and that's going to be, when you get bigger guards, are they going to post him up? What are they going to do? However, he's a willing defender, and when he adds a little bit of weight, it's going to be tougher to push him around a little bit. You saw with Xavier Simpson, people weren't posting him up, people weren't able to get around the corner on him. So being an athlete's going to help in that respect too. But of the 3 point guards that came in, Jaden Bradley, Seth Trimble, and Dug McDaniel, I know for a fact that Juwan Howard loved this kid. In speaking with people close to the program, and I'm thinking, man, is he too small? And we had some debates about that. However, you got to trust a guy like Juwan Howard, right, who's seen these guys, who knows basketball a little bit, and I got a good feeling that this kid's gonna have a pretty good career.
Yeah, it's kind of funny talking to his coach. He said that. I said we know the familiarity with Juwan Howard, so if people didn't know, I guess, and read some of our stuff, Doug had grown up on the camp circuit with Jet Howard. I feel like everyone knows the Howards in the basketball world, which is a great thing for Michigan recruiting and all that.
They need to have more kids, Clay.
What's that?
They need to have a few more kids,
right? And then because if he's here for 20 years,
exactly.
So. He knew the Howards, and he calls Juwan Howard uncle and everything, so obviously they have the close relationship. And then we talked about Hunter Dickinson and Terence Williams, good buddies from the same AAU program. Doug played up a year with those guys, actually. In some practices, they would bring him up. So, he knows those guys well. Terence Williams was his tour guide here on his visit. Hunter Dickinson phoned in because he's obviously preparing right now for this elite camp that we already talked about. But I said, what other factors, do you think were at play here for Michigan other than, he's a good player. Michigan likes him. He's got the relationships there. And he said, man, when you look at the way they develop small point guards, this staff, and I was like, man, so now Juwan Howard has the rep of being a big guys coach and the smallest, of the small,
Yeah.
on what he did with Xavier Simpson that last year. And Xavier Simpson was already, an established player, but they were able to come in and make that, pretty darn good offense, a top 20 in the country offense, even though they were a little limited and they battled some injuries that season. And then this past year with Mike Smith, the kid from Columbia, and he said, man, no offense to Mike Smith, but what they did with a guy from Columbia, and he looked like a guy that wasn't from Columbia, that obviously speaks to the way they can develop some of these smaller point guards. So they have that going for them as well, that they're just getting this reputation right now for developing just about every position. So I think it speaks a lot. Anything else on Dug McDaniel?
No,
he's kind of the first commit, but we all kind of know that Jet Howard's going to come anyway. So that's a hell of a start, I think. Top 100 kid, rated number 75 in the country, as you mentioned, and now Jet Howard's in the 40s, and you go from there. They're leading for a couple guys here that are pretty highly ranked too.
Jet's going to be a top 25 in my opinion before it's all said and done. And I think that Doug is probably a little bit underrated. I think he's going to be closer to a top 50. And, Xavier Simpson was, 80 or something like that. And I think he played above his ranking. The interesting thing is, no, he wasn't a pro, but at the same time, this guy led him to, unbelievable success at Michigan.
All-time winningest player, yeah.
Right,
him
exactly.
And Teskey, so.
Right, yeah, great point, right? It's like, well,
that's all that matters, right? Winning.
Right, do we really want another Xavier Simpson? Hell yeah, you want another Xavier Simpson. And this kid's different, but I love the chip on his shoulder, man. Being a little bit vertically challenged myself, I love these smaller guys that feel like they have something to prove. And Dug McDaniel's that guy. Great personality too. And speaking with him, and then speaking with everybody, once again, Juwan Howard with the great kid thing, and it's culture, and he gets it. And Dug McDaniel's not going to be one of those guys that disrupts the culture. He's only going to help build the culture. So really like this addition.
That's an overlooked thing, I think, too. I was kind of talking about that with some fans, and just how, we're not the ones in these visits either. Juwan Howard might have said, hey, I think this is the best fit for our culture, and he's a heck of a player. So you take that guy every day of the week, in my opinion. And again, as you said earlier, you kind of got to trust him at this point with this process. Sure, they could have played it out and maybe gotten one of the other guys, but he knew that too. He's not ignorant to that. And, he understands what was at stake here, and I think it's a good start. They had to kind of get going on this class here. This is a big month in basketball recruiting, and a lot of the top programs already have guys in the fold. So I think it was important to get started here. And he already kind of had Jet again. So
it's kind of funny. It's a relative thing, right? Because you got the number one recruiting class in the country last year with 6 guys. You could get 2 or 3 guys that are just okay, and think, okay, well, you're going to be fine. The next class is a big class, and that's kind of how it was with John Beilein, because there are only so many guys that can play. And in no way, shape, or form am I criticizing John Beilein. It's hilarious to me that people still criticize his recruiting, given what he accomplished, and some of the guys that he brought in here and developed. It's not about getting the number 7 guy in the country. It's about how that guy does when he's here, whoever you're getting here, and what happens from there. Look at Tim Hardaway. Look at Nick Stauskas. These are all guys that were, 75 to 100 and something. Trey Burke was, criminally underrated, but still, what he did when he came here, and it's like, oh, well, Beilein never had a top 5 class. Well, and Beilein would argue, hey, let's rank them after they leave and let's see how they were. And he obviously had some of the best classes in the country. But at the same time, Juwan Howard is getting guys that, in my opinion, are going to, there's no question these guys are going to be great pros, or they're going to have great careers like Hunter Dickinson. I still have no idea what to expect of him at the next level. But when you look at college basketball recruiting, there's one ball, buddy. And you know what? That's one thing that Beilein always kind of had shorter benches because, he understood that. And that's something that Juwan Howard's going to have to manage as well. I think he's going to be okay, though.
Yep. And to take from John Beilein, when he won Big Ten Coach of the Year, I remember in 2014, he said it doesn't matter if you're Coach of the Year, you want to be Team of the Year. It kind of goes along his philosophy of it's not about building a recruiting class, it's about building a roster and a culture. And Juwan Howard's doing the same thing. He just kind of has, an ability to reel in a few more top guys, as we saw. Like you said, John Beilein didn't reel in a top 5 class again. He was in the top 5 though of teams at the end of the day, so that's all that mattered. Juwan Howard's been really, really close to that. In the top 5 and without Isaiah Livers getting to the Elite 8, so he's obviously on the right track as well. Let's flip over to football, and we will start with the commitment on that side of things. Daylen Baldwin, wide receiver out of Jackson State. He played at Morgan State for a couple years previously, played for Deion Sanders this past spring, so he's just coming off of a season in which he led the SWAC in receiving yards with 540 in 6 games, so you got to kind of extrapolate that out. That would have been a 1,000-yard season. He had 7 touchdowns, would have been 14, obviously, if he kept it up throughout those games. But the SWAC is a good conference. They've produced quite a bit of NFL talent over the last 5 years. I think they've had in the double digits of NFL guys. So this is a league that can play. And he's a big guy at 6'3", 210 pounds, I believe. So I think that's kind of my biggest takeaway from this is that, Michigan didn't offer a ton of wide receivers in the portal. They offered a ton of defensive tackles. We saw that, and they landed one in Jordan Whitley, but they weren't going after every receiver in the portal. That means they like this kid. That means that he impressed when he worked out for this, for a couple of the coaches last week and earned that offer. Ohio State also offered. I think that's important to note as well. This kid can play at the very least, in my opinion. He adds some depth. I think he can get into that rotation. And then another thing to this, and we kind of wrote this looking at the wide receiver rotation with him now in the fold. Ronnie Bell excelled at the slot his first 2 years. He moved outside last year, did well. They moved him around. He played the slot there too. But this gives them a little more flexibility with another big guy on the outside to either give him a blow or allow him to kind of move inside because Ronnie Bell is your best receiver. He has been the last 2 years statistically, and when you just need to find a guy that's open. So that's going to be big too, I think, to free him up.
Player of the year in the conference, right? In the SWAC?
Newcomer of the year, yep.
Newcomer of the year. Okay, well, this guy, I think 6 games I think he played,
yep.
if I'm not mistaken. It would have gone out to about 1,000 yards had he played a full season. So I like him, and I spoke to his high school coach, and he said this is a guy that showed up every day, loves football, and he said, this was at Waterford Mott, and he said, I'd love this kid. He said, it's amazing to see where he's come, and he said now he wasn't the chiseled 6'3" kid that he is now when he was here, but you love these late bloomers and guys that continue to come on and fly under the radar. Clearly, is a guy who can play. You see his hands, man, in those videos, and you think, okay, this kid's going to be able to play at the Big Ten. We'll see about his route running and things like that, but. They needed another big receiver. Let's be honest here. Cornelius Johnson, I think, is really the only one, right? If you look at it, and you need a couple more guys in future classes too. You can't just have these, the little guys running around. You need the big ones too. So I think he fits the bill. I think he's going to play. I think that's pretty clear. So. Hopefully they have the quarterback that can get the ball to him. I think he's going to be one of those jump ball type receivers, maybe he's run some fades that Michigan's had in the past. So the fact that Ohio State wanted him is pretty big, in my opinion, as well. So, it's nice to see the portal work for Michigan at this point because, I was hoping they'd grab another linebacker or two, and I think they tried. But this is something where this is a kid that's, again, about culture as well. He's going to help the culture, too, and that's something that they needed to fix. And talking to some of the coaches on the team, they said, it's not like it was terrible, but, we need to get back to where we're expecting to win championships and expecting to play for a Big Ten title game appearance in that last game of the year against Ohio State. So I think he's one of those kids that's certainly going to help the culture, and I think that he's going to be valuable here in another year or two.
Yeah, easier to land grad transfers as we've seen. I believe, did Alan Bowman graduate? I think he might have from Texas Tech, but Jordan Whitley graduated. And Daylen Baldwin is a graduate. He has 2 years of eligibility remaining. Yep. He's had a crazy last couple of years because he had to sit out, and then he didn't have his season in the fall. Played again in the spring, but only 6 games, so you hope he's fresh. He might be the most ready guy out there, no rust at all come fall.
Right.
He's got to dive into the playbook now and, start building that chemistry with those quarterbacks that you talked about with the rest of the team. And I think it is big to have another big receiver. Like you mentioned, Cornelius Johnson, the only guy on the roster with experience at Michigan that's over 6 foot. You have Christian Dixon and Andrell Anthony coming in, I believe. Andrell's at 6'2", and I want to say Christian Dixon's 6'1", but they haven't played a snap, and I don't expect them to be part of that, top end of the rotation. So it's big to have that, and then also for numbers too. Just to mention that Michigan lost 2 guys, Giles Jackson and Xavier Worthy. This offseason, they would have been at 9 there. They're at 8 now with Daylen Baldwin. I was looking at Ohio State and Penn State just for a little, quick comparison on their scholarship chart. They each had 10 wide receivers. So getting you closer to that number because you lost a couple guys, I think, is big too. Michigan now at 87 scholarships, but 3 of those are walk-ons, so they're really at 84 because you can kind of give and take those as you go. So they kind of needed to lose some of those guys too, speaking of numbers. But this is a big addition, I think, for Michigan as well. Let's talk Steve Klinksgale real quick before we wrap up. He joined John Jansen this week on his podcast. Great listen. We had the article up there with some of the more notable things, Chris, that you wrote that he said. And this is an impressive guy. I like how he's kind of got that old school mentality, but he's obviously a great recruiter. He can connect with these kids. He kind of remind me of like Jim Harbaugh. I can see why Jim Harbaugh likes this guy. He's a lunch pail guy, like a hard worker from Youngstown, Ohio, knows the Midwest, recruits the Midwest really well, connects with his guys. And, watching his mic'd up from spring practice at Kentucky, this guy is a really, really detail-oriented guy. So I think he's just a great fit, and Chris, you wrote that as well. He's proving to be a great fit so far in his first couple months.
You know why I like him is because he reminds me exactly of Ron Bellamy, who actually recommended Klinksgale a few times when Michigan was looking for cornerbacks and defensive backs coaches to Jim Harbaugh when Ron actually turned Michigan down. It wasn't the first time that Michigan had gone after Bellamy. It wasn't the first time that Michigan had gone after Klinksgale. Now you got them both. Ron Bellamy relates to kids extremely well and is one of the classier guys I have ever spoken with. He's just a great dude. Has always helped us out and played for championships at Michigan, won a championship at Michigan. So he gets it. And having him in the building, Mike Hart, Steve Klinksgale. Klink is a guy that, in speaking to the Kentucky guys, they're like, man, that's a huge loss because this guy is so good, not just at coaching and recruiting, but just being a genuinely good person who, again, is all about culture. And I'm going to continue to say that. People are like, oh, it's all about Jimmy's and Joe's, blah, blah, blah. You still have to have the culture, man. You look at the culture at Alabama, you look at the culture at Ohio State, at Clemson. You can say whatever you want to about the talent and how they go about getting it, but when they get there, these guys want to play and want to win for the program. It's demanded, and that used to be the case at Michigan, and it hasn't been, frankly, flat out. I'll be the first to admit it. And it's been 16 years now since they've won a championship, which is stupid at a place like Michigan, and just doesn't make any sense. So, and a lot of that is culture and guys that are out there just, not biding their time, like a few guys that have been here till they get to the NFL, trying not to get hurt, but, laying it all out there for Michigan. Chad Henny playing with a separated shoulder, for example, guys doing anything and everything. And this is the most important thing right now. The NFL will be there. And it always has been. That's what these guys need to get back to realizing. I think Klinksgale, I think that Ron Bellamy, I think Mike Hart are guys that are going to continue to preach that. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens here with this staff. But I can tell you this, I love them. I love the makeup of this staff. I like Mike McDonald, everything I've heard about him. So it should be fun to watch these guys, I think. And I think you're going to see that culture continue to gradually build. I'm more optimistic now than I was at the beginning of the year based on the staff changes and some of the things that are going on in the building.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And Steve Klinksgale, it was a disappointment when Mo Linguist left. I think the gut reaction from everyone is like, oh man, this is a disaster. I mean, they got a guy leaving. Well, he went to be a head coach, and we've talked about this, but then you bring in Steve Klinksgale, who a lot of people wanted back in the winter to join the staff. I think he's a better developer. I mean, Mo Linguist is a great recruiter, and I think he's probably a good coach. Obviously, he got a head coaching gig, and he's impressive. But does he really have this track record of he bounced around a lot. Does he have a track record of developing a guy? I don't think he was at a school for 3 years. So developing a guy all the way to the NFL level. Again, I think a lot of those guys, did well, but Steve Klinksgale has been at his two most recent stops for a long time. Cincinnati, also was a defensive coordinator his final year at Cincinnati, so he has that experience. Then he goes to Kentucky and produces guys that are getting picked in the first, second, third rounds. Kentucky's Kentucky football. It's not Kentucky basketball. These are 3-star, lower 4-star guys. And guess what? Michigan didn't recruit that well at corner over the last couple of years. It's kind of the crop he has right now to work with. I think he's going to reel in some more. And obviously, Will Johnson's coming for next season or next year, in 2022, and possibly some other guys. But so I think right now he just needs to hit the ground running with this group, and I think that they're going to be better. Can't be much worse, but they're going to be better than they were last year. And the pass defense, as he's now the defensive passing game coordinator, a great title. They're getting more and more creative, I feel like, around college football with these titles.
Hey, whatever it takes, man.
For sure. And he can earn co-coordinator status if they finish in the top 25 in passing defense. So he's got the incentive there as well. But I think they're certainly going to be improved. It's the same basically group as it was last year. And, they got now a scheme that I think is going to help them out a little bit more, and a coach that's going to connect with them and build that culture that you're talking about.
You got it. And DJ Turner's a guy to watch.
Yep.
You know what, Jamon Green, I think Vince Gray will be better in this scheme. There's no question about it. He lost his confidence last year being put on an island. Nothing against Don Brown, who I loved. Everybody knows that, and had great defenses here and things that he accomplished here. It's funny, how people are ripping on him. He did some really good things at Michigan, too, and wish him well at Arizona. But I think this scheme will probably be a little bit better for these corners, and I'm excited to see it. Excited for them. Some of them, we heard they had up and down springs, but you know what? I think they're going to get the most out of this group. I think by the middle of the year, you're going to see these guys really start to improve and get their confidence and get familiar with McDonald's scheme. So I'm starting to get excited about football, man. I'll be honest. I don't want to wish the summer away, but you get into June, you get the football preview out, which we have. It should be arriving any day, and you get that itch, man, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, we're too close to it almost because we were working so hard on football months out. But I agree with you. 4th of July, once that's over, it's almost like, all right, here we go. But you got to enjoy these last. We still got several weeks, but
we do.
Yeah.
July 22nd, brother. You're going to go down to Indianapolis with me. We're going to cover Big Ten media days in Indianapolis. That's only, what is that, a month away? It's 5 weeks away. It's crazy. It's right around the corner, my friend.
That's the official, unofficial kickoff to football. So, we're a month away. We'll continue to cover the offseason news as it goes and continue to ramp up here at thewolverine.com, heading towards football season. Full go come September 4th. Join us there using the promo code BLUE60. Try us out for 60 days. Use our message board with thousands and thousands of Michigan fans. Get the insider updates, football, basketball, recruiting. Promo code BLUE60, and we'll see everyone over there.